Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Voice of Guo on August 3rd, 2020. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and click the bell so you know the next time we upload a video. Now, let's bring our attention to breaking news across the world. Breaking news number one, China under CCP's control released delicate disease to the world. When having a meeting with US tech workers and signing the executive order on hiring Americans, President Trump once again emphasized the fact that COVID-19 came from China and was released by the Chinese government. Quote, "It is a very delicate, very contagious disease. It was released by China. What China unleashed was a very, very sad situation." In addition, President Trump criticizes fake news CNN on its failure of talking about the origin of the virus and its overemphasis on current infection situation in the US, while largely ignore COVID outbreak is equally as bad in other countries across the world, such as Spain, Italy, Russia, and more. It appears that countries across the world have started to experience the second wave of COVID outbreak. Breaking news number two. SpaceX Dragon Capsule returned to Earth successfully. SpaceX Dragon Capsule successfully completed atmospheric re-entry and parachuted into the Gulf of Mexico on Sunday, carrying NASA astronaut Bob Behnken and Doug Hartley. Musk's speech was an emotional delivery where he identified the challenging times of 2020. Elon said, quote, "I'm not very religious, but I pray for this one." He is referring to the Dragon capsule. "We are going to go to the moon. We are going to have a base on the moon. We are going to send people to Mars and make life multiplanetary," quote, he said. Elon Musk, a first-generation immigrant from South Africa, proves once again that highly skilled and intelligent immigrants are key contributors to American society. Breaking news number three. Could Microsoft be the next owner of TikTok? Trump on Friday said that he was planning to ban TikTok, aimed at concerns that its Chinese ownership represent a national security risk because of the personal data it handles and the fact that Chinese government can access private companies' data at will. But President Donald Trump suddenly changed tune and wanted Microsoft to negotiate an acquisition of TikTok if it could secure a deal in the next 45 days, instead of outright banning TikTok. Though the proposed acquisition of TikTok, which boosts 30 million US users, might offer Microsoft a rare opportunity to become a major competitor to other social media giants such as Facebook and Snapchat. Although Microsoft also owns professional social media network LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is strictly used for workplace and professional networking. However, this acquisition could prove to be dangerous. TikTok could potentially become a backdoor into all data held by Microsoft, given that TikTok still has most of its servers in mainland China. Now, let's bring our attention to what is happening in Hong Kong. CCP officially began its global manhunt after national security law was implemented. Let's take a look at some details.
Hong Kong pro-democracy convener Mr. Wang Taoyong, exiles in Germany, is wanted by the Hong Kong police for violating the Hong Kong version of the national security law. Recently, in his interview, he pointed out that the Hong Kong government is trying to deter overseas Hongkongers from uniting to form an organization to exert influence. He stated that he will never stop advocacy activities because of the threat from Beijing. Mr. Samuel Chu, the man behind many of the Hong Kong bills in the US Congress, was recently wanted by the Hong Kong police for violating the Hong Kong version of the national security law. This is the first case of a foreigner. Recently, Mr. Chu was interviewed with the Central News Agency and said being wanted makes him understand the true face of Chinese Communist Party and the true intentions of its legislation, not only targeting Hong Kong, Xinjiang, or Tibet, but all over the world.
Thank you very much for the reporting. Now, for the next news, after the national security law was implemented, most people in Hong Kong believe Hong Kong is dead, and of course, the law of Hong Kong is dead as well. Let's look at what Hongkongers think about the current legal system.
Since the passage of the national security law, over 99% of Hong Kong pro-democracy camp supporters have indicated they believe that judicial independence is completely defeated. Still, almost 50% polled believe that resistance is not futile, while 30% say it is. 48% still believe that elections will impact Hong Kong's freedom. However, the pro-democracy camp candidate had not been disqualified at this time. Furthermore, when asked who caused the most resentment towards the CCP, 38% of respondents indicate Carrie Lam, while 30% indicate the police. None choose the protesters or the media. Additionally, 80% polled indicate a greater desire to immigrate after the passage of the national security law.
Thank you very much for the reporting. Of course, Hong Kongers can choose to immigrate to other places given that many Western countries has opened its door to refugees from Hong Kong. So, if the people wants to leave Hong Kong, now is the time. Next news. CCP's implementation of the national security law to Hong Kong has not been unnoticed by international communities. Let's look at how Hong Kongers in New York City are protesting against this draconian law.
Hongkongers assembled in New York against the draconian state security law that has eroded human rights and liberty. Under the scorching hot weather and the long shadow casting by the CCP virus, there were nearly 200 people attending the assembly. Most of the interviewees expressed worries about the security of their own and their families, having participated in such an event under the threat of the transnational order for searching. The protesters wore masks, chanting slogans, restoring Hong Kong, revolution of our times, 5 demands, not one less, we are all Hong Kongers, quoted from Senator Bob Menendez and Congressman Elliot Engel. They sang the song, May the Glory be to Hong Kong. Safe Harbor Act and the Hong Kong People's Freedom and Choice Act are being promoted through local efforts to seek hope when escaping from risk of being arrested. They said Hong Kongers would not give up and continue to fight for democracy in Hong Kong.
Thank you very much for the reporting. Next news, let's bring our attention back to what is happening with the CCP virus. Now, we all know that back to earlier July, a doctor from Hong Kong, Dr. Yan, defected from mainland China, and she brought breaking news to how the CCP virus was made and how it was spread through the entire world. Let's look at some details.
Since her defection to the US in April, Chinese virologist Dr. Yan has been interviewed by ex-White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, where she has stated that NCOV-19 was not a natural bat virus, but a lab-engineered virus based on one found in bats, intentionally modified to target humans. She is quoted as saying there was zero chance of natural evolution. Additionally, she has alleged that CCP authorities deliberately uploaded inaccurate genome data to frustrate attempts at ascertaining the true origins of the virus. This was only corrected once the first overseas cases were reported. Additionally, she reported that 2 Chinese virologists, known as Batwoman and Professor Zhang, both published in Nature magazine, suggesting that NCOV-19 was most closely related to the Zhoushan bat virus. In retaliation, CCP authorities have closed Professor Zhang's P3 lab to prevent him from engaging in further research.
Thank you very much for the reporting. The outbreak of the CCP virus is indeed a prime example of how not to let a crisis go to waste. Now, next news. After sending the entire world CCP virus, now the Chinese government is up to some new games. They are now sending the entire world a bunch of seeds. Let's look at what these seeds are and what the Communist Party is trying to do.
US and Japan reported that since July 28th, there had been 9 unsolicited packages of soil, compost, and a variety of weeds and seeds that appeared to be coming from mainland China, most of which could be the brushing scam by third-party sellers on e-commerce platforms. USDA is working closely with DHS to enhance the imported package checks. USDA urges anyone who receives an unsolicited package of such to hold on to it safely with the original packaging until it's collected by USDA for further investigations. Do not plant those seeds as their unknown origins could introduce problematic diseases and harm to local crops. USDA also called on people to not purchase any agricultural products from overseas. If due, please make sure to follow Rule 16 and 17 under plant protection and quarantine to import properly with the required certificates.
I have a better recommendation for all of those people that receive seeds from China. Just burn it. Now, to the final news. Because of what's happening around the world, CCP virus outbreak, global economy slowdown, it seems like the internal power struggle within the Chinese Communist Party is even greater. Would the annual Beidaihe Meeting of the Communist Chinese Party be held or not be held? Let's look at some details.
In early August, the Beidaihe meeting was held by top officials of the Chinese Communist Party as usual. It is known that the latest public activity of leaders of Communist Party of China stayed on July 31st, and some provincial and ministerial leaders have also been mobilized recently. Comprehensive research and judgment this year's Beidaihe conference seemed to be gradually entering the stage of debut. According to Chinese Communist Party's official media, General Secretary Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Li Keqiang of the State Council of China will have public activities every day from July 28th to 31st. However, since August 1st, we have not seen any reports of their activities on the eve of the Beidaihe Conference. Every year, leaders of Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China usually make their appearance in turns either in Beijing to attend their conference or in other places for research. It will temporarily disappear during the meeting. Before the meeting, the Hebei Provincial Party Secretary of Communist Party of China in Beidaihe will lead a team to the meeting site to inspect safety preparations. During the meeting, leaders will also visit experts who are also vacationing in Beidaihe. Looking at this year, Wang Dongfeng, the Secretary of Hebei Provincial Party Committee, went to Beidaihe for inspection as early as mid-June, 1 month earlier than the previous mid-July. However, due to the Wuhan pneumonia epidemic this year, early inspection considered is necessary. In addition, there are unconfirmed reports that Beidaihe and Qinghuangdao railroad stations have implemented secondary security checks on passengers who are disembarked last week. There were also police officers on local roads to perform face recognition and temperature measurement, and security measures have become stricter. As for leaders of the Chinese Communist Party, public activities in late July tended to be intensive. Taking Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, as an example, on July 31st, he attended the completion and opening ceremony of the Beidaihe 3 global satellite navigation system in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing.
Thank you very much for reporting. These are all of the news we wanted to report to you today. Tune in once again tomorrow, and we will see you next time. Good night. Bye-bye.